Okay, welcome everyone to another webinar of NewGenP. I believe this is our 13th webinar that we've run, and we're very pleased to have Trish Lynch join us for this webinar. Interestingly enough, we did our first one almost a year ago now. It was in April, and Trish was part of that panel discussion. So it's good to have her back, and we thank you, Trish, for all your support over the last year for NewGenP. So without further ado, I'll turn this. I'm Peter Monkhouse, as one of the co-founders of NewGenP, along with my colleague Joanna Tivik. So I'll turn this over to Joanna Tivik to talk a little bit more about this session and introduce Trish. So Joanna, over to you.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you everybody for joining us. We see so many names that we know. So thank you for being with us every time we do these webinars. And welcome Trish to talk about OKRs, or objectives and key results. So basically, Trish and I have known each other for many, many years. I don't even know how many, Trish, but we worked together in a partnership and we stayed friends. And I always admire Trish because she's not only an agile coach, but she's a mentor. Every time I send somebody to her, she continues to mentor people. So thank you so much. And she's an inspiring leader. And she's also contributing so much as a volunteer to the community. So we thank you for that, for organizing events for us and with us. So basically, you are amazing in what you do, and you also my great friend. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Trish to talk a little bit about the structure of the session and what she will talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you all so much for taking the time to accept this invitation. I appreciate you spending an hour with myself, Peter and Joanna. So today's big talk. So today we're talking about OKRs, setting objectives and measuring our objectives. What I wanted to do to start was to ask a question to poll the audience. And Peter, if you could go to the next page. If everybody could go to, oh, sorry, I've jumped ahead. So what we're going to cover in the next hour, very informal. At any time, if you have any questions, please put up your hand. I don't mind. I prefer that you ask questions now than parking lot, because parking lot kind of breaks the flow. It's your meeting. I'm here to just provide some information, some real, just touch upon OKRs and provide you with information about where you can go and really learn much more if you're interested in implementing in this in your organization or suggesting this, recommending it as to your organization. So today, the first question will be, we'll get to Menti. We're going through Mentimeter. What do you know about corporate strategy? We'll talk about what are OKRs, writing them. We're going to break out into sessions so you can each write an OKR. We'll touch upon how to implement, difference between KPIs and OKRs, because there's somewhat a bit of confusion, and talk about certifications and playbooks. There's a lot, there's this massive, especially in the agile world today, there's certifications for everything. So there are some, and I want to talk about those and introduce you to direct you to playbooks. So to touch it off, let's, if you want to go to the next page, Peter, we're going to ask a question. So what do you know about your corporate strategy? So if everyone could go to menti.com and enter this code 36708159. Okay, so as you can see, based on the answers that we have out of 7 people, I guess about 60% or a little bit more are actually measuring towards a corporate strategy. Some people are saying, I learned from the internet. Oh, we have a little more now, but not measuring frequently. So, and then there's one person who says, no, this is not uncommon. It's actually good to see these numbers. 5 out of 8 are actually measuring. When people often, I remember joining organizations where through onboarding or any point throughout my contract, or if I was working full-time, anytime during that period, that during onboarding, you're not given information about corporate strategies, what your teams are, how aligned your team is to meeting the corporate strategies. Secondly, you sometimes just get pointed to the internet. So there's no engagement. There's the internet. All that information is there. You can go read it. It's available to everyone. So they're just pointing, and not, you know, how many people actually go and read that and come back, and they're pushing it to the employee, and it's really lacking that engagement. With OKRs, I mean, I think the biggest thing nowadays is the engagement piece of it as well. So that's just to give you a percentage of what it really looks like out there and how people are not really aligned. Sometimes in organizations, you know, you're working away. At the end of the year, you get a report that says, oh, here's how we did according to our strategy. And it's great to have that information, but it's not very helpful after the fact. So that's what the downside of it is that kind of old mindset. To get into OKRs, OKRs are a strategic framework within an organization. And the benefit of OKR is it aligns the organization. It brings in engagement because you're actually not, you know, we set a corporate strategy, but each team underneath sets OKRs and to meet that corporate strategy. Each team sets theirs and they do their measuring through the key results. So there's your engagement piece. Everyone's involved in the organization in creating OKRs. So it's not done, you know, your director doesn't say, here's our OKRs. The team should be involved in it. They're the ones doing the work and delivering so that we have that full engagement. We have transparency and full accountability to meet our OKRs, or to meet our objectives for the year, not KRs, sorry. Okay. OKRs started from way back. Andy Grove and Intel created OKRs. Everyone thinks it's a Google thing. However, it actually stems back further, way back in the 1950s. They were created by Peter Drucker invented MBOs, management by objectives. They evolved into OKRs in the 1990s, and everybody's quite familiar now that Google was the originator of OKRs, but in fact, they're not. It even stems back further, a lot way before many of our times. Okay, so I'll give you an example of an objective if you want to go, Peter, to the next slide. So here's something that we could say of an OKR. I want to get fit. It's very broad. It's a challenging. Something is, I want to get fit. What is that? That sounds very vague. The key result can be, I want to drop from 50 or 60 kilos to 55 kilos. So the key result has a whole bunch of definitions or rules assigned to it as well. Your objective needs to be very clear. You know, I want to get fit. Can be a little vague in times as well. Your objectives are also quantitative and they have to be aspirational. You know, I'm inspired to lose weight. I want to get fit. So there's my inspiration. Key results are quantitative, right? They tell you if you've achieved your objectives through a measurement. So you wouldn't want to say, I want to get fit, I'm going to start running, because running you can't measure. You could say, well, I ran the block. I mean, that is measurable. But what you really want to do is you want to assign a value to it, the quantitative piece of it. So you're saying I'm going to go from 60 kilos to 55. What you really want to do is baseline it as well. A lot of people might say, I want to increase revenue by 10%. I want to decrease cost by 10%. But really what's important is to have a baseline so that you can actually measure it and there's no ambiguity. So you really want it to be in that sense. How many objectives? When teams are creating their objectives, you really don't want more than 3 per planning period. A planning period can be a quarter. A lot of times I've done it with organizations and we do it quarterly. So for our corporate strategy, we would set objectives for a quarter. For key results, you don't want more than 5 or 6 per objective because it gets too many. Even less than that might be helpful because you don't want to bog yourself down as well. Some people might say there's no hard, fast rules, but I would really limit it to once you get 5 or beyond 6, it's becoming too much. There's different
Trish,
ways. Yeah.
Trish, there is a great question from Nawaz in terms of would a key result follow SMART principle, specific, measurable, attainable, reliable, and time bound? Would you see that like the way we write these objectives and then the results of these objectives, to be very specific, to be able to measure them, to be able to put them in a time category.
Yeah. So what you would do for the objectives is you would set the time period. In many cases, would be a quarterly, so that you would meet every month and track your objectives. Are we meeting our objectives for that quarter? So yeah, you want them to be. So when you talk about specific and measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound, yes, because when they're specific, you're actually you're being specific, you're setting your base, and you're making it quantitative. There's your measurable. You want it to be achievable. Well, in terms of achievable, you want it to be challenging. So at the end of the quarter, the likelihood of you may not get to 100 because you score it between 0 and 1. So you don't necessarily need to get to 1. You can get to 70% is a really good achievable, because that means you're really, you've got a lot of focus on getting to that goal. So if you're making it challenging, getting to 1 may mean that it's actually not challenging enough. Relevance, of course, has to be, it has to align to your corporate strategy. And time bound, you can do them. Do you want to do them monthly? You can measure monthly, but ideally you could set them on a quarterly basis. So yes, you can definitely use it smart as a structure using for your OKRs. So what I was thinking of doing was that we'll create a corporate strategy. And I'm going to ask maybe Joanna or Peter if you want to come up with a corporate strategy. We're going to break everyone out into groups. And we're going to have each of you, we'll have an objective. So we'll have one objective, and we're going to have everybody write 1 to 2 key results. So I thought the best thing to approach to do is just write and learn. So I always like to learn by doing, as opposed to, obviously reading and learning from that perspective, but learning by doing. So I thought what we could do is get everyone to break out into teams, and we can write an objective. So maybe we'll give you an objective, Joanna and Peter, maybe you can come up with one. Any thoughts on that? And then we'll get everyone to write key results for that. Any thoughts on that, Joanna?
Peter is very good at setting up objectives.
Yeah, I mean, something,
You're on mute, Peter. You're on mute.
Mute, yes, I'm on mute, yes. Is my camera working? I'm on mute, all these popular terms we're learning. So what I'm wondering, Joanna, right, here at NewGenP, we have our vision, right, and mission. Maybe our colleagues here who have joined us can come up with some objectives for us.
So let's tell them what the vision and the mission is, so we can actually go together and define an objective. So our vision is to transform organizations through new ways of working. And the mission here is to inspire and create a new generation of professionals to support organizations, to listen to their customers, deliver value, and execute strategy. So I guess one objective was for us to schedule these webinars, on a monthly basis, and to inform the community about different techniques, different tools around product management. Yeah, but that would be to create these webinars would actually be a key result. So one thing what you could do is so one of your objectives could be, we want to create more awareness we want to increase our brand awareness. One of them would be to create regular webinars, right? So you could say, I want to schedule 1 to 3 webinars per month, or 1 to 4 webinars per quarter. That would be an example. That's why I wanted to get everyone kind of thinking. But let's take a look at, it says on your About section, vision transform organizations through the ways of work. Our mission is inspire and create a new generation of professionals who support organizations to listen to their customers, deliver value, and execute strategy. So the key thing is our mission is to inspire and create new generation of professionals, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we could take that. If everyone, what we can do is, Peter, you'll have to break people out into groups. If everyone can come up with some key results about creating new generation of professionals, just come up with some ideas and have discussions. Focus on a key result that is quantitative, a number percentage. It can be similar to what Joanna said, is it doesn't have, you
You can say, I want to create X number of webinars per month. It doesn't have to, if it doesn't have the baseline range, that's okay. The rating piece, leave for now. We'll get to that after we create these and when we go into how we measure them. Okay, so I would like to get, if everyone, each team just wants to talk about, tell us the KP or the OKR that they came up with in relation to the into this lovely statement, their mission statement.
I could go. So we tried to connect with, we saw 3 parts in the mission. So it was to inspire and create a new generation of professionals who support organizations to listen, to deliver value, and to execute strategies. So we only had enough time to kind of talk about listening.
Yeah.
So I guess listening would involve broadening the base of people that we can listen to. So the whole aspect of, I don't know what the average number of people attending these sessions are, but I think I count 12 people here beyond the organizers. So so I just came up with a number, or we talked about, what would it look like if we were to double that? So we had 24 attendees. So the way it was stated to be a little more quantitative, knowing the baseline is 12, assuming that is the baseline. So over the next 6 months, to increase the number of attendees that are providing their feedback and input from 12 to 24. Something along those lines as an OKR.
Okay. Any comments from anyone? Sorry, Mark.
One of ours was, thanks, Mark. One of ours was similar. We thought we would increase webinar attendees by, say, 10 to 20%.
Sorry. Can everyone else go on mute? Thank you.
So thanks, Todd here. So just like Mark, our group talked about increasing attendees at webinars by about 10 to 20% over a 3-month period. But in addition to that, what I thought about this new generation of professionals, I don't know what the number of that pool is. I don't know what the metrics of it is, but identify that and then work to increase that by 10, 20% over 1 year span.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's all I have.
And I think we were thinking about also about new people versus returning people as well, because of that thinking that you continue to add new, but then keeping the people there engaged could be another result.
Yes, yes,
that was
they
the
could
question.
be.
Is it
Yes.
a result or is it an objective?
Well, yeah, because it depends on an organization. Sometimes you'll see customers will say that we want to reduce customer attrition, right? So, and then they want to increase into a new market, or they want to increase into a new market that's not within your geography. So there could be different ones based on old and new, definitely. But not to say that you can't have an OKR for this quarter that's specifically geared toward new. You can do that as well. You don't have to have both. It depends on what your strategy is.
And if there are both, like what would that be? Those will be key results?
Yeah, so your key results, if you want to reduce your attrition, your customer attrition. So the key results are, we are going to offer discounts for, we're going to increase our discounts for existing customers from 10 to 15%.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's an action item. Sorry, that's not it. Sorry, that's wrong. So we have to come up with a way, how are you going to keep them and how are you going to reduce that number, right? So you're going to increase your offerings, right? And you can measure that.
Mm-hmm.
So so you'd have to come up with something, or what are some ways that our organization will keep them versus how are we going to get new customers?
Okay.
And then you can measure that over a period of time. And what about the third group?
I believe Ardita has posted them in the chat, but maybe someone from that group could share.
Yeah, that was the second group that Todd was talking about.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so third group.
Shall I maybe get no success? Okay.
That was Clara, Danny, Luca, or could one of you share with what you came up with, please?
No pressure. Okay.
If you want, if you're willing to, yes, no pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we also find challenging in coming up with the subject itself. So we kind of discuss the employee engagement. What we want to do is objective is to have a bit of a team collaboration or company-wide collaborations. And what we discussed was to have a monthly meetup so that we can stay healthy and stay connected. We didn't come up with any specific measurements or objective, but we'll say we'll kind of start talking about once a month. I think Clara and Luca sort of mentioned about happy hours being the idea to come up, that we can meet once a month to sort of get engaged.
Yeah. And you could do that. So what you can say is we'll host monthly meetups, right?
Correct.
And then invite new people, because then the expectation is that you can, and then you measure that. Are you having monthly meetups, or are you having biweekly meetups? And then you can measure that, and you can also get KPIs out of there at the same time, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that's actually a good one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also
Right.
looked at how many people joined, and also like maybe collect some qualitative data from that experience.
Correct. Because some of the data that you get from that is existing versus new, and that really helps you to rate to measure your success. Right. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Good start. Okay. So that was I just wanted to give you a feel what they're like to write them. They are difficult. They take time. It's for a company where it's net new. It's it's not something that you're going to roll out across the whole organization. So, which leads into how do you get these going? Before I touch on that, what I want to talk about is measuring these. So, what I did previously at an organization, and I'm going to share. I'm going to share my screen for a second. If that's okay with you. Oh, no, I don't need to. No, I don't need to. No. Yeah. So this is a simplified process. I hope you can see this, right? Does that fit in the screen? Yes, no? So what I have here is my objective is to get fit, just what we talked about earlier. So I added 2 key results. One is to lose weight, go down from 60 to 55 kilo. I wish that was my problem. And to run 5 kilometers without stopping. So each month I'm going to do this. I've set this up on a quarterly basis. So to measure, the measurement goes from 0 to 1. So each month I'm going to measure it for April, May, and June, because that's Q2 of 2021 for me. And in the first month I'm going to lose, or the first month I'm going from 60 to 55 kilo. I've got 0.2. So I've actually lost a pound, right? And then I go to 0.4 and 0.7. So at the end of it, I've reached 70% of my goal of the 5 kilos. And that's how we measure. And that's the rating. 0.7 is really achievable. 0.1 often is, remember I was saying these have to be challenging. So to get to 1, if you get there, the question is, well, was it challenging enough for the team? The next one is, I'm going to run 5K without stopping. I would probably die right now if I tried. But, so again, in the first month, I did 0.4. So I was able to run 2 kilometers without stopping, 0.5 to 0.8. So by the end of the month, I was able to run 3.5 kilometers. So that's quite the achievement for somebody that's overweight and sits on the couch all the time. But the point is that that's how you would measure it. And that's what those numbers mean. It just equates to a percentage. You can value, so you would be like 0.2, 0.4 of 5 kilometers would be 2. right? So that's just a simple measurement.
Mhm.
And that's how you want to structure it. Now, what we did, there's different ways that you can present this. You could just put it on a whiteboard for your team, so it's transparent to everybody. You could keep it in a shared drive, Google Docs, Excel, and just bring it up. I like keeping it on a board that's visible, like your Scrum boards or your Kanban boards on the wall, because it's available. People can see it. It's transparent all the time, and it's a reminder because it's there. It's in your team, and you can also use Miro. The thing is when you're using applications, it's not available to everyone, because quite often organizations, leadership team likes to walk around, especially in agile environments, walk around and see the progress. And this is great to make that visible to them at all times. And it brings up, engages in conversation, because executives will come down and walk around, and anyone in the team can engage in some really valuable conversations with the execs. So that's how the rating goes. And then there's just some ideas about making that transparent to everyone. Because if you don't make this transparent and you just show it at the end of the year, how could anyone say by the second month, if you're not going to get to 0.7, you're only get to 0.5, you can actually start adjusting and making shifts and pivot yourself to try to achieve closer to that goal, right? So that's what that's about as well. Similar within the whole agile world. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I've got a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say one of the challenges I have is, let's say we have a number of business features we're looking to deploy across 3 months, and let's say at the end of the 3 months, we want to budge one of our OKRs, to a certain outcome, and we break it down by, let's say, each month. The challenge I have is when we're writing the acceptance criteria for the feature, namely in terms of business acceptance criteria, just challenging them to really give it some thought. How can they actually measure the value when it's deployed and customers are actually using it, getting real feedback, as opposed to just a more of a vague thing that, hey, we're going to reduce expenses. I want to have a number that that's a target KPI they're trying to achieve, and then at the end, the actual. I just find it's challenging to challenge product owners, et cetera, to come up with business outcomes that way. If you have any tips on how to help facilitate that would be great. But they don't many times think of how am I going to prove that this has had this particular outcome. So
right. So are you talking specific to about your product, like a customer, using, like how often someone goes to a website, how often someone, I don't know what the line of business that you're in, but trying to measure it from that perspective, how many times they hit a website or go to certain pages, or how many times they go to the checkout and then they abandon it. Is that the type of KPIs that you're talking about?
Yeah, those are the type of KPIs. So sometimes they're simple to identify. Sometimes they're very vague and they don't have any way of measuring it. So I say, hey, it's aligning with this OKR or this KPI. We just don't have a way of measuring it. So that's the challenge.
I'm just trying to dig in more. Do you have something specific that you can't measure? Just so I have an understanding and that you're having trouble measuring.
Yeah. So let's say customer satisfaction with using our product.
Right.
Now, I'm trying to get more of a granular net promoter score type of metric in place.
Right.
So they hadn't even thought of that. So, that's the easiest thing that I could think of. But that requires, some real intentions around measuring quarterly or every month, NPS type of thing. So yeah, it's hard to quantify, but
yeah. I know, and that's the thing. I think, I don't know, anyone else can jump in here and help out? I'm not quite sure specifically on this one.
Do you mind if I say
Yes, please,
something that I
Rosita,
have?
thank you.
So in my case, in my experience, on those cases, we say, well, if you cannot measure it, then that's not a key result. If you can measure portions of it, then let's start with that, and let's start probably set a baseline that is going to help us next year or next quarter, depending on the case, on how to start measuring that. A very concrete example I had with an operation team. They were measuring operations, business operations in a very large scale, and they wanted to measure some reliability metrics, but it was so hard because it required like 2 or 3 metrics from 2 or 3 different teams to come together to create that key result. And they're like, we can do this manually, but it requires a lot of work. So right now it's too hard for us to get that number. So what we did is initially we started saying, okay, can we start seeing these numbers specifically? And we kind of started setting some key results that were just on those specific metrics, that then in the next quarter, it took like a quarter to kind of stabilize and understand that. And then in the next quarter, we said, now we can measure this. And it is done automatically through the dashboard, right? It was much easier. So two cases. If you don't have anything, the first quarter, make it like set a baseline. Let's start measuring. So what it is, learn how to measure it. And then if it is too complicated and requires a lot of things, again, first quarter, give yourself time to figure out how to measure it without losing track of still keeping them. That is how we did it, but there might be other ways.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There is a question from Nawaz. Is OKRs top-down approach, or could it be bottom-up as well? And how to approach establishing bottom-up OKRs? Like, is it more of a top-down, like from a strategy perspective, you start there and you go down? So you really need to understand. I think that's the question, Nawaz, and I had the same question. Like, do you need to understand the vision and the mission of the organization, then come up with the strategy or something so you can formulate the objective, or can you do it, bottom up as well? So I have particular objectives and I can actually build a strategy.
So an organization that's implementing OKRs or will have your corporate strategy, right? Each team below will create so there is the bottom up, there's the top down, bottom up. Bottom up is this team here is going to set OKRs and that is aligning to this corporate strategy. So what is this team developing, creating that aligns with this corporate strategy? So it is top down in the strategy, and then you could say top down from the next level, like VP, and then it goes down to teams, and then there's the bottom up. Bottom up is where the engagement happens. In a lot of organizations, you have a strategy, and this VP will tell this director, we're doing this, this, and this. And these people down below are not engaged. The bottom up brings engagement, and the whole organization, every level, is involved in creating these OKRs.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to everyone? Any specifics about that?
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So for a large organization, it's quite an undertaking. A smaller organization, it could be a little bit simplified in a sense of just the involvement. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Like, for example, our organization has like a 4-year plan as far as, measurable outcomes. And, I've asked for a breakdown into, an annual and quarterly for the area I'm working with. And now we're at the level of creating features and refining features for the next quarter. So I said, well, I want each feature to have, some measurable outcome that we can roll up. And that way we do a little bit of a reality check because, we may not have the capacity to deliver what they're hoping we can. And it's better
Correct.
that we know early on so we could pivot and make changes if needed.
Right.
So I think it is bottom up. I think it needs to be done 2 times, from a planning side and then again from a tracking side.
So let's say this is your team, like this is your initiatives, let's say within your team. If you're building this, if there's a feature here that you're building that doesn't really meet this corporate strategy, then the idea is, should you be doing it? So that's why the bottom up is really important.
Exactly.
Right?
In fact, that's what I want to use to really say yes or no, what will be included.
Right.
One of the mechanisms to say we're not going to do this in the next quarter.
Correct.
So yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, because if this strategy is to increase your customer base outside the existing geography, let's say, and any of these features don't meet that, don't help achieve that goal, really, then in terms of prioritization, it would be a lower prioritization because it might come in the future, but it shouldn't be worked on right now. Not to say it shouldn't be on the backlog, but it definitely, you don't want the effort there. That's why the bottom-up approach is really important.
So
but you can't start
where is that question about the customer need though? Is that going to be in the strategy? So the strategy should reflect the customer need?
Well, you could say, so in this section here, let's say the strategy says I want to increase the customers, or we want to increase new customers. You could have a sales team here. They would have their OKRs about how they're going to increase the sales, right? You could have a product that you're building or enhancing that says our OKRs to increase our new customers would be different, and this is how through that product we're going to increase new customers. So each team, you could have customer service can be how are we going, I don't know if customer service can, but you can have different teams that are going to create their own OKRs.
Right, but in the meantime, as a customer, I don't care if you want to increase your customer base. I care that you give me a new feature that is addressing my needs or solves a problem that I have.
Is that the new customer that you're talking about?
No, as an existing customer. Let's say that as an existing customer, I need a mobile feature. So
yeah, you could have multiple strategies. If one of them is you have an existing base as well. You have your existing customers that you want to manage, but from the OKR perspective, from managing, you want to move it up to the strategy. If the strategy this year, that could be considered business as usual work, right? Okay. But this aligns to the corporate strategy for the year, and then what you're going to be doing, let's say, on a quarterly basis.
Mm-hmm. So it needs to be reflected in the strategy at the end of the day.
Yeah, because there's missions and strategies, right? So you would, if that, sorry, who's that?
No, I was thinking, would it help to continue with the metaphor of I want to be healthy? So one of the ways we break that down to help with this conversation was, okay, I want to be healthy, right? And there are, is the department of exercise, is the department of eating, is the department of sleeping, is the department of mental health, right? So there are many departments, just like in an organization. Now, each of these departments is going to have their own OKR that is going to help for, I want to be healthy. Mm-hmm. Exercising is going to do their own OKRs. Okay, I'm going to go to gym and I'm going to do this. Eating department is going to have their own OKRs. I'm going to eat vegetables. And mental health department is going to do their own OKRs, right? I'm going to need to do yoga and relaxation. So think of it like that we never do only one thing, right? It would be a waste of all talent that we have. But all of these, on every area, they group for one bigger purpose.
Right.
Does that help, Trish? Is this aligned with your?
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, my dear.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, that's what we wanted to have. We wanted to have a great discussion around this. And as we can see, there is much to talk about OKRs and how we understand them. And it's very specific to each organization. But I think overall, what I've been seeing that they helping organizations understand what they need to focus on, because that's also about the focus from my experience as well. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for contributing and participating. Thank you, Trish, for, I know, taking on this delicate mission, to come and explain this concept to us. And we'll continue the discussion for sure. So I think it's time to wrap it up. So I'll pass it on to Peter to talk about our next webinar. And our guest is here with us. So will be fun to talk about that.
Yes, thank you, Joanna. And thank you again, Trish. A very interesting and a very good discussion.
Thank you.
Everyone participating.
Thank you, everyone.
So yes, so Artie is here actually. So she will be back on April 29th to deliver value continuously. So maybe Artie, you can just, rather than me say what you're going to talk about, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's it ties well with what Trish was bringing here. So learning how to set those goals and learning how to measure, and then it comes into, well, how are we going to deliver those and how are we going to deliver value continuously? We are so used of just starting work, and sometimes even we forget to measure that the work that we just finished actually matched what we wanted to achieve. So I'm going to bring some of my experience when it comes to how we decided to stay focused on the value and how we moved away from some measuring some things that were not helping us, but by shifting in the value, being value driven, it helped the organization to set proper OKRs to start with, but also even how to deliver those and how to organize around those. So looking forward to share with you.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
And looking forward to it. And you can, there's a QR code here. You can scan to register now, or the link, I don't think I've got the link up on the website yet. It will be up this weekend for you to register on our website. And we'll send out the reminders as well to you as well as we get a little bit closer. So, and just to wrap up here, that we just want to thank you for attending and all your support. You can find out more about what's going on going to our website, www.newgenp.com. You can email us if you want to have a 30-minute virtual coffee to talk about products and your product questions. Besides these webinars, we do webinars on projectmanagement.com as well. So we have one coming up next Wednesday. Interesting enough, speaking about value delivery as well. So that will be on the March 31st at noon. The link is on our website. And finally, we've got a course, an online course at University of Toronto that starts on April 19th. So we're doing 4 half days. We do, I think it's the 19th and the 20th, and then the 26th and 27th, if I remember correctly. That's available as well. So that's open for registration on the learn.utoronto.ca website. So if you have any questions or anything else, by all means, feel free to email us. So with that, thank you again. Have a great weekend. And thank you for joining us on this session.